Hey, Reframables, it's Nat. Today we are reframing laughter as medicine, though another metaphor that emerged in our vulnerable conversation with actors and creators Perrie Voss and Heidi Lynch was actually polishing the stone of our lives, sanding down the rough edges and smoothing things out over time. One of the ways that they are polishing is by delving into the amplification of underrepresented stories in their new web series, Avocado Toast. Perrie shares with us about her mental health struggles, and Heidi talks about the impact of endometriosis and how for both of them their health struggles make their way into their art. Some reframing takeaways that show up. Mental health hygiene is a full-time job. The practice of joyful actions takes practice. And making ugly art to find one's inner child is fun. Perrie and Heidi also reflect on the things that they refuse to sacrifice in their next project, inspiring Bec and me to do the same. So, join us for this conversation with Perrie and Heidi as we reframe polishing the stone of our lives.
Perrie and I are just having a moment because we went to theater school together, so it's really fun to see her in this context. And did you know I podcasted?
Not until we got the invitation from our lovely PR person staff. So yeah, and then I was like, wait a sec. And then I had to listen immediately. I was like, what? So I listened to a few of your episodes just to see what it was all about.
Welcome, Perrie and Heidi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your show is fun, and it's not out in the world yet, right? Is season 2 out?
No, it is.
Oh, it is out. Okay.
Yeah, September 9th it launched on Out TV. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I must have been watching private screeners, maybe?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And how has the reception been to season 2? It's a fun, grief, intense season, which I've really appreciated how much you're sort of packing in with lots of issues. Like, you're not afraid to go there, which I really admired. This is the experience of humans.
Yeah, I think we were all a little bit like, how are we going to fit all of this into our digital 15-minute time frame, because we just had such big things that we wanted to talk about. And they're all, again, like season 1, 2, very divergent stories, but somehow we found a through line. So that was pretty exciting when we sort of realized that pain and, the universality of suffering and things like that can happen in so many different ways. So yeah, we're pretty excited that it all sort of conglomerated into something that was worth telling in one show and not 3 different shows.
Can you tell, sort of just for our listeners who are completely new to who you both are and what it is that we're doing here, all about Avocado Toast?
Season 2.
Go for it, Heidi.
Yeah, I mean, we can stick to season 2.
Maybe give us context with season 1 too.
Yeah, really briefly, season 1 followed Molly and Elle, and it was really fixated and focused on their female friendship, which was codependent and not healthy. They were both struggling with things in their lives and leaning on each other. And spoiler, the end of season 1 is a bit of a, are they going to be friends or aren't they situation? And then we really launched right into season 2, discussing female friendships and a potential female friendship breakup, because the 2 characters are going through really massive life moments. Elle is really struggling and learning about her mental health and how to cope with that in her life. And Molly's learning about her physical health, being diagnosed with endometriosis and adenomyosis, which affects 1 in 10 people born with a uterus. It's a very common thing that's not talked about. And then we have a 3rd lead in season 2, which is Alexander Nunez. And he's really struggling with work-life balance, figuring out how to speak up for himself and fight for the life that he wants. Season 1 was cute and charming, and it is also like tackling really big issues. And it focused also on a baby boomer generation, which was very cool. But we really deviated in season 2. We really hit a new stride, a completely different underrepresented, and I would argue more underrepresented storylines, that because of what had happened in the world during the pandemic, because of what had happened with Black Lives Matter, because of what had happened with so many things, I definitely really felt a responsibility. We'd been given funding, we had a platform, and I wanted to welcome even more underrepresented writers into our little pocket. So we asked Alex and Prince to come on as writers. And I'm so proud of what we did in season 2. It's very different than season 1. They're sort of different worlds, which is not, when you get hooked into a series, you sort of like expect the same thing you fell in love with in season 1. And we were brutal. Like, we killed beloved characters. Christian Brune and Faye Marseille do not come back for season 2, and it's no mark of them. We love them. Christian Brune is unique and special in his own right. He's like Canada's Tom Hanks, I think. I was thinking about it. No one would say a bad word against him, and we loved working with him. He's comedy gold. But I really wanted to ask Alex and Prince to come on board, and I wanted to see their characters have some equal weight to Molly and Elle, who are going through really hard things. But Perrie and I also come to those hard things from a place of privilege. The way that we experience the healthcare system in terms of mental health or physical health is very different than our Black counterparts. Like, it just is. And I really wanted to use our funding to try to make something intersectional, which I think we really achieved. And through Perrie and my and Alex's work was really hard. And Sam, our director, was incredible as a story editor and a director to make those stories make sense all together in a world. But yeah, it was a really exciting thing to try to do. And the viewers have to decide whether we succeeded or not and whether it had merit or not. But I wouldn't have done it any other way. I'm really proud of it.
What do you think about this idea? I'm really stuck on this idea right now of, I had just read some writer was talking about, and it seems like you're doing it in the show, but trading our pain, like the way we trade joy. The image in the book I was reading was that, you pat someone on the back at a game or when there's a win. Are you sports people? Because I always am using this image, but I'm not really a sports person, so it's not fully an image that resonates. But the kind of, you would just naturally be exuberant about someone scores, but that we can equally almost be exuberant or willing to open up with our pain. Does that make sense? And do you feel like that seems so natural for you both? That you're not shying away from trading your pain?
I was listening to a podcast not so long ago that was talking about the sort of world where people can lean into being a bit more morose and kind of bathing in that a little bit. And I think a lot of my life I spent trying to avoid bad feelings, trying to avoid sad things. Oh, that seems painful, I don't want to deal with that. And ascribing to the thing of positive thinking and just trying to lean into that. But then I think when some big life things happened for me that I literally couldn't work through, like when one of my parents had an affair and then I found out, I don't know what to do with that amount of grief. It forced me to just start talking about pain, which also led me down sort of the path of talking about my mental health and why I don't need to deal with anxiety and stuff. So I don't think that naturally I was born talking about my feelings. I think I had to learn how to talk about my feelings. And then what you're saying, finding this place where you can share with other people and realize that you're not alone, I'm realizing now is quite beautiful. Whereas before I'm no, I'm not sad about anything. So, just that waspy mentality. And the last 6 years has just not been that for me. I like that concept. I think Heidi would feel similarly, but I don't know. I'm interested to hear what you think.
I feel like you can fall into a trap with art, especially new filmmakers, where you think pain means drama, pain means interesting. And for me, it's not pain, it's the growth. So to just say I'm in pain, this is my pain, here's my pain, that's not dramatically interesting to me. Watching a character struggle to grow from their pain, struggle to learn from it is interesting. And I guess I would argue, I don't know if I see enough of people sharing their joy in content on television, specifically Black joy is a beautiful thing that's shown in Avocado Toast. And I take that from creators I'm working with on other projects right now who they don't want to talk about their pain. And maybe it's not with me as a producer because that's not for me to be working with. But I think pain is a inciting thing. It's a catalyst. It's why people are mean. It's why people are angry. And it's a root of a character you need to show. But for me, like the exciting journey is to watch that the pain is their obstacle, the pain is their struggle, but what are they trying to do? And how do they grow through that with each other? That's sort of like more, I think, that my brain reaches to in telling stories than trying to like write a character's pain or come from pain.
I would agree with that. And I think like even looking at the last like 6 years of our lives and how much we grow through that, I think that's what we set out showing with Molly and Elle too, is when we were writing them initially, it's like we were laughing through this, you know, using that pain to laugh and then grow and learn. And how do you get to the other side of it while you're sharing all the nuance of it? Yeah, I agree with all of that.
Yeah. And I do love that that is where like Perrie and I both fall aesthetically. It's like as you said, we're not afraid to have really big conversations and we want to have them because they're important. But for us, there's no sort of like journey or package or collage for the audience where they can have a breath and then actually get affected by those things if there aren't these pops of comedy and ridiculousness and beauty and fun and joy. Like there is an Avocado Toast. Like it is very much a dramedy.
I love that because I love how you guys bring forward the humor and the idea of healing from the past through humor. And that's certainly something that Rebecca and I navigate on this show a lot. I mean, we've both had, because who hasn't, your various pains and your various circumstances. And the fact that I can come on here and laugh about having navigated, you know, a painful divorce or whatever it is that I bring to the table that day. And then Rebecca's the person that can laugh at it and with it, with me, is a really big kind of community builder that we've actually experienced people say to us kind of as just listeners, wow, you both bring a lot of vulnerability to the table. Like that's what it is that's so striking. And I wonder if the vulnerability and the laughter are connected. So, you know, as your show does that, like as it's sort of bringing humor, these pops of humor to help heal from the past, is there sort of like an inherent vulnerability that you would say is built into that as well?
I think so. Season 1 was the first thing that we had ever done on any scale beyond just sort of our little, you know, arts and crafts brains. And I didn't realize like how vulnerable the whole thing was going to be afterwards, like watching it and having to do these interviews and, you know, showing it to my parents who the story was based on and, you know, like bringing these real life things and then bringing this vulnerability, which I don't think that I ever would have said like, oh, write about, you know, your pain so that you can work through it. But it definitely did help me as well as a person to navigate some of that privately. I'm not really interested in shows and movies that aren't inherently vulnerable on some level, personally, as a storyteller.
Do you use the word risk? Like, do you think about that? What am I risking in this telling?
It's so funny. I don't even think about it as like risk. I think about it more of like connection. And I guess maybe that's like after the fact when I've realized that I've made a big risk, but that's also just who I am as a person. Like I'll do something and then go, wow, that was a big thing that I just did. But I'm more driven by the connection or the need to tell a story or the need to make representation happen somehow.
I don't know if this is even answering the question, but like at the time that season 1 was made as well, like things have changed in our circumstances. But at the time we were very focused on acting and we weren't getting the roles we wanted to be getting. We weren't getting work. So we were making these roles for ourselves to try to showcase our acting abilities, and they were very based on our own lives. And like, I remember watching through the process of filming Perrie start to realize that like, oh, this is what we're doing. Even though we'd written it, it was like, oh, I'm going to have to act this in front of 20 people right now. Like there were moments where it was challenging, you know, and yeah, like it opened up conversation Perrie was going to have with her parents. I hadn't come out to my parents yet. Once the show got funded, I was like, well, I guess this has to happen. Like it just became this sort of snowball where like we were working through things. But I also think like risk isn't a word that really came to mind. I think like art is vulnerable. Art's not interesting to me unless it's vulnerable. And that doesn't mean pain. It means like opening up, being willing to share, and yeah, putting something on the line for the greater good. It's not like, what am I risking? It's what am I gaining? What are we gaining as a group is more on my head. And like, yeah, for me, even when I was just a baby, you know, theater school actor or whatever, like the focus on myself totally dissipated as soon as I was aligned with like, what does this character want? What is this piece saying? And I have to be connected to that and think it's important. And then your nerves totally go away. And you're able to be vulnerable in a very safe way.
Dum, 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 dum.
Hey, Reframables, a little housekeeping. Don't forget to rate, review, or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts if you like what we're doing here on Reframables. Your feedback really supports this reframing project of ours. Also, please sign up for our weekly newsletter, which comes with a free delicious recipe from Nat. Check us out over on Patreon too, where we do mini episodes which we call Life Hacks and Enhancers, our 5 best things in a week. On Patreon, you can become a monthly donor for as little as $2 a month, or you could even tip us on our new coffee account. Lastly, tell us what you like and what you want to hear more of. We love feedback and getting to know you, our listeners. All the links are in our show notes. Love, Reframables.
Dum, 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 dum.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you're shedding a light on underrepresented stories?
Season 1, we were talking about adults going through their parents getting divorced and how that's not really talked about. It's always the kid of divorce that gets focused on, but it can do detrimental things to people's concept of love and union and marriage, and it does just put you on a bit of a spin. And coming out later in life in season 1, at the time, all the celebrities coming out as bisexual hadn't happened yet, and I really didn't know where to put myself, and it really affected my life. And then season 2, endometriosis is getting light shone on it right now, which is so great. I'm so happy about that. And mental health in terms of L. And then also the differently abled, Prince Amponsa. I saw him in a short film years ago. He was in the short before a feature I was in at Canada Film Fest. And I was like, I'm going to work with him. And it took years until the epiphany came, but it came. Yeah, and Alex getting to, show a Black queer. In terms of Jordan, what I feel most excited about with representation is showing a more femme man. And that doesn't mean you're not a man. There's so many different ways to be masculine, to have a male experience. I think we've done a really great job. I know Perrie just shared this on her social media too, and as did I, but Abby Jacobson from A League of Their Own did this amazing speech. I'm still involved as a producer on the show. I still have a year of work to do, and a lot of my work is getting the numbers, getting the data, putting it into a report, telling the funders and the networks how good we're doing. But it's not quantitative, it's qualitative, and we'll never know. We'll never know how many people watched Avocado Toast at home alone and saw themselves represented. But that's our target audience, and that's who we're making it for. And anytime we get a little message or a DM from those people, it's the best feeling in the world. At the end of the day, I don't really care if we have 9 million views or not. It's the quality of all the people we'll never know that watched the show and thought, oh, it's really nice to see myself up there.
Yeah, and I think that carries through for both of us in terms of who we hire and work with that aren't seen on camera too. Yes, the stories and what everybody is going to view is under mental health and endometriosis and, everything that Heidi just said. But I also think, we really want to work with people who aren't necessarily cis white men, which is obviously what makes up so much of crews. And we had cis white men on our show and loved them to death, but it's picking the people that are also allies of helping other people get the crew roles that aren't necessarily the go-to people, gender diverse people and women, people of color in key positions. I'm a huge advocate of that across the board. And it's so cool that we were in a position that we could tell these underrepresented stories with an underrepresented crew.
I was just reading an article about Sarah Polley in the New Yorker and how she was on Women Talking. She was trying to create a community vibe. It was really important to her sort of on camera just by having 2 shots all the time. So not characters in isolation on camera, which is interesting, but also, this community vibe behind the camera. I feel like that comes through really strongly in your show, a sense of community.
That's great. It is definitely something we set out to do. Every person was handpicked by Heidi and I in interviews to make sure that, we not only loved them, but they were madly talented. and people that wouldn't necessarily be the first person that you pick up the phone and call. Like we did a lot of work to try and find people that wanted to accelerate their careers and maybe hadn't had those opportunities yet.
Do you feel tired? Sometimes trying to make change in areas. Like, are you mostly elated from this experience, or are you a mix? Like, it's fatiguing to try to do things and then you don't always know how it's being received. So is it mostly really positive, or is there a mix? Because come on, let's trade some pain.
I'm still in the journey. Like, I'm still doing marketing, producing and stuff with the network. My Avocado Toast season 2 track probably won't be done for another 8 months. And I'm looking forward to that and then going, okay. But Perrie might be able to speak a little bit better to how it feels after. There's a cost.
I was also post supervisor, so I didn't get a break until the end of April, working straight through from whenever we were writing last summer, 2 summers ago. And, it's fine. I think the tiredness doesn't come from putting these amazing stories on screen. That's not where the tiredness comes from. The tiredness comes from constantly working. I explored a little bit of that through Elle and the burnout and stuff, but I will always have energy to tell stories that need to be told. Like, even when I'm exhausted, I'll get stories ideas and I'm like, right now, I have to write this down right now.
Yeah, because that's energy giving.
Yeah, exactly.
And every time it works out, every time, as Perrie said, we did these interviews and it wasn't just that we were digging. It's sometimes there's a very specific key that I'm completely in love with that I will die to work with forever. And she knew her worth and she wanted more money. And there was a negotiation, a lot of stern talks that had to happen to make it happen. But we found a money, you know what I mean? And it's she was the best person for the job. But those moments when it works out, when you get a bangering crew that feels yes, this is how I feel comfortable. This means all of those months of grant writing I did make sense because this is our team. This is amazing. That stuff's life-giving, definitely, And with any process, there is conflict. There's difference of personalities. There's strong personalities that don't get along. And that's the part that drains every ounce of my energy because I'm just come on, let's put the project first. But, at the end of a project, which I'm not at the end of yet, but I can't wait, you look back and the bad things for me, they're gone. They melt away because, look what we fucking did. And every time it goes wrong and robs you of your energy and takes some of your beautiful, positive energy away, it is a learning lesson for when you get to do your next project. Just going okay, I learned that again. That's not going to happen this time. We're going to do things differently in this way. And you just keep polishing your little rock until it's smooth.
I really like that. That's a really great image. I'm teaching a course right now on research practices and reflexivity as a necessary part of the practice sometimes means letting go of a project, right? Or putting the rock down. As you were basically saying off the top, that how I tell a story, whose story I get to tell, what it means to tell a story a certain way, whose voice needs to be sort of centered in a storytelling experience. All of that is partly where I was going in my mind back when you asked the question about fatigue, because reflexivity requires energy and it's actually easier not to look at the self and just sort of focus on the project, right? And then pretend that the project's its own thing, when actually the interplay of the people involved, the community, and then the project, and then the path forward. I see it from an outsider looking in. I never went to theater school the way you all had to kind of navigate this life. So I'm sort of this observer over here going, oh my gosh, that reflexivity piece is so inherent. And it's not surprising when one gets tired on the road. And one should. But that's the biggest thing, right? Is I think a lot of people want to look away so that the fatigue never gets in. But then nobody grows. So isn't that at the heart of it? It's really fun to hear because I feel I'm growing as I'm listening to you all. But at the same time, I'm I don't want to do that.
And sometimes you can't get up for the idea. Do you find that? I was thinking, isn't it Elizabeth Gilbert who says the muse comes? And sometimes you'll have to let that idea go.
Yeah, or it's just not the right time. It goes into a drawer and then 3 years later when you do have energy and it is the right time, that same idea can happen.
dum 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 dum.
So we've developed this science of reframing tool, and I think that you got a chance to maybe look at it, but just to sort of give some of our listeners a little bit of a recap on this tool, we've sort of laid out a number of reframing strategies that people can use to help them get from one side of a hurdle to another. And it doesn't necessarily mean the hurdle goes away. It just means that perhaps they have different sort of strategies to make their way through it. So if it's going out and being in nature, if it's finding someone to listen to, if it's finding somebody who can actually speak with you and listen at the same time, because those are two very different ones. Have there been any reframing tools that you have grabbed hold of? And I know you said you're still in the process, but as you kind of maneuver through it and grow through it, have there been any that you have, like when you saw that list, you went, oh, I do that all the time, or I need to do more of that?
It's funny, like I was focusing on mental health in the telling of season 2, and then I had another mental health crisis near the end of post-production. So it made me go, oh, I guess I'm not done with this story yet, right? I was like, I need to actually look at myself again and really decide if I'm going to put myself through that type of crisis again and where I go wrong to put myself in a position that I'm that burned out and all that stuff. So I was listening to a podcast several weeks ago, and there was something like mental health is a full-time job, period. That is your full-time job. So for me, every day there's something that I'm doing, whether it's journaling, meditating, being in nature, exercising, therapy. Like I'm just constantly making sure that I feel okay and safe in my body before I'm interacting with anybody else. And if anybody disrupts that, I take a step away and go, how do I then navigate going forward? And is this person worth my peace, my sense of peace? So for me, that's where I operate now. It's really important to me to keep that front and center, just because if you become not functional as a human being, what is the point of any of this? So yeah, those are the things that I think I do. Yeah, I journal a lot. I make art just for art's sake. I play the piano, just things that are actually joyful, because I think when you make a career and you make money off your art, it can become really easy to say, okay, well, I need to go work now, and all art becomes work. But, I'm really hope no one ever pays me to play the piano. I used to sell my art and I don't want to sell my art anymore. So I just use my fingers. And
she makes good art, by the way. She does good paintings, just for the record.
Thank you. I challenged myself to make ugly art now, and then I end up loving it anyway. But I'm like, let's make the ugliest art that I can make, because that's where the kid is, right? Like, who's the person that wanted you to make film in the first place? Yeah, that's how I interact now with every day. I'm not always successful, but that's my goal.
What about you, Heidi?
I don't feel get as good of an answer for me. I mean, as soon as we wrapped, I was the music supervisor, so I got to delve into music world, and music has always been a huge outlet for me, and it's something that I've never used in a job sense. I play multiple instruments, I write songs, whatever, they're just for myself.
She's also wildly talented in music. Like, her voice isn't like an angel.
But yeah, negotiating those music contracts with artists, it is all tied to work for me. I have a hard time with hobbies and stuff. I like things to be connected to work, but I also I'm making 2 new shows. I have a beautiful doc series and that process has literally been pure joy from start to finish. And we just made our little teaser, and getting to shoot in nature, getting to again pick this amazing crew, the people that I literally just wanted to hang out with at a cottage, who are so talented, and they get to be in nature for 3 days, was reframing for me. It was helpful. It helped me look back at other experiences when people maybe didn't work together so well, or whatever happened, and go okay, every single thing won't be heaven, but there are things that I refuse to sacrifice going forward. And so for me, it is the new project helped me reframe the old one, whenever this project is done in 8 months or whatever. But I'm literally at a film festival right now for Avocado Toast. We're screening it tomorrow. It's really fun and exciting. And yeah, I don't know when I'll be ready to reframe it, because we're still on the journey. But I'm excited for that point. I think there's definitely a transition. I think we all know there's not going to be a season 3. So it will come to an end at some point. Yeah, I don't know. I think it might take me a bit more time. I'm somebody who is impulsive. I make decisions and I do things and I reflect on them much later. I probably just need a bit more time. That was very rambly for someone who said they didn't have an answer.
Life is a bit rambly sometimes. We're trying to figure it out. And it's true. Like when you're right in it, it's hard to know what this whole experience has been. For my series, it took years to reflect on the value, the great parts, the hard parts, all that. I totally get that. Thanks for sharing, both of you. Okay, we like to do a little speed round. Are you ready? As you can see, we're fairly complex people. So our speed round is not very speedy, but just do your best. Just try to answer fast if you can, just for the hell of it.
Off the top of your head. Yeah.
Nat, hit us.
What's the last new skill you learned? Heidi first.
To make a digital business card I can have on my phone in my wallet.
Ooh.
Perrie?
My partner's currently making an ice rink in the back, so I'm learning vicariously how to make an ice rink. They literally made a Zamboni out of PVC pipe. So I'm not out there.
What?
My new skill is Jay's new skill.
Yeah, because I'm learning vicariously. I just don't want to be out in the cold, but that's my new skill.
But then you're definitely going to take advantage of it, right? The rink?
Oh, 100%. And I can do it next year.
Your new skill is Zamboni wife. I'm sorry, you need to reframe that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's so awesome. Perrie, you live in Calgary?
Yeah, part-time. So I'm here. Jay owns a house here. They say hi, by the way.
Okay. Hi.
So we're here when we're not working because it's just wonderful to be in a place that is in the mountains and nature.
Yeah.
And then when we work, we book a flight and fly back or fly to or wherever we have to go. So yeah, part-time.
What's a common myth or something people misunderstand about your profession?
Ooh, that producers don't care about the art.
That you've made it when you're on a TV show that everyone recognizes. And all the other work is oh, okay. And then you're like, no, but I don't sleep sometimes. And
No, that makes sense. Okay, what is the most fun thing that you've done today or are going to do? Because I'm thinking of your premiere.
Yeah, going to a networking party tonight. I'm excited. It'll be fun.
where are you, Heidi? Are you in London?
Newcastle.
Newcastle, okay.
Newcastle upon Tyne. It's a party town.
What British town isn't a party town?
Many.
Well, it's very early here still, so waking up was cool. I'm going for dinner at Jay's parents' house tonight, and they are wonderful hosts, so I'm looking forward to that.
So that'll be fun. Got it. Okay, how would your siblings or a close friend describe you in 3 words? Perrie, you go first.
Funny, intelligent, and emotional, but not in a bad way. All the feelings.
I have to do siblings because you said siblings and I have 3 older brothers. So my one brother would call me Stinky, not because it's true, but because it's a nickname. My other brother would call me the best aunt in the world because I am. And my other brother would call me his best friend.
Oh.
Oh, that's so nice.
What do you both need to be creative? 1 word.
Money.
Heidi, what did you say?
Money.
Money. Okay. And Perrie, is that what you said too?
I said space.
You can buy a space with money.
Space, just feeling not bothered, mental space.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, and last one. What's for dinner tonight?
One's at a party and another's at another party, so this will be great.
Hors d'oeuvres.
I'm pescatarian and they eat a lot of meat, so usually they cook some sort of fish or seafood something. So yeah, and lots of wine.
Yeah, there's promised to be, I forget the name of the restaurant. It's got a wacky name, but it's the Northeast International Film Festival, and they've promised food and drinks. So I'm hungry and I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat tonight.
It's going to be good.
Yeah, I hope so.
Can I say one last thing? There was no segue into this, but I just want to say, Rebecca, I remember meeting with you and Marie Claire at some cafe in Roncy years ago.
Yeah.
2016 or something. And I was trying to pick your brain. I think you were about to go shoot season 2 or something. And you are the reason that whenever people are like, how do you do what you do? You literally just looked at each other and you're like, you just have to do it. And Heidi's heard me say it in interviews. I say it all the time. And, young filmmakers are like, oh, but I'm like, it was the best advice that I have ever been given as a baby filmmaker, because I thought that there was some secret formula or something, and you guys just very pointedly were like, so do it. And it created this show for my trajectory. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah, I'm glad. And actually it's funny because I do remember that coffee. Yeah, I remember it really fondly. And so that's really cool that we could have inspired that. It's true, just everything. I feel like that's the way in the arts my whole career has been. Just
do it.
Keep going. Just do it. Just try, and then keep going. Keep moving.
Dum 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 dum.